مرحبا بكم مشاهدينا في حوارات السياق. أعلن الرئيس التركي رجب طيب أردوغان عن اجتماع مرتقب بين وزراء من مصر وتركيا لبدء عملية بناء العلاقات، مؤكدا أن المحادثات ستتطور انطلاقا من ذلك. للمزيد من المتابعة حول هذا الملف تنضم إلينا غونول المديرة المؤسسة لبرنامج تركيا في معهد الشرق الأوسط ومؤلفة كتاب حرب أردوغان صراع الرجل القوي في الداخل وفي سوريا. سيدة غونول، مرحبا بك معنا.
Thanks for having me.
كيف تقيمين مدى تقدم التطبيع في العلاقة بين مصر وتركيا؟
Well, it's been part of Erdogan's larger efforts to mend ties with both regional countries and also with the Western world. And I think the main driver behind this U-turn is the domestic situation. Erdogan is facing elections next year, parliamentary and presidential elections. And he's been losing ground in the polls because mainly because of the economic situation, but there are other pressing challenges. And the opposition, Turkish opposition, has been trying to put together an agenda that will address the country's pressing issues. So I think mainly because of domestic problems that he's facing ahead of the elections, he concluded that mending ties with regional foes and the Western world was the best course. Because after the Arab uprisings, Erdogan, and particularly after 2015, Erdogan has been pursuing a very militaristic, very aggressive foreign policy, which put him at odds with regional countries, but also with Washington and also European capitals. And I think that that he had to pay a price. He found himself quite isolated, and that was one of the reasons behind his volte-face. But I think there are larger dynamics in the region as well, and Turkey is not an exception. Other countries, particularly the Gulf countries, for instance, they have been also pursuing to mend ties with Turkey because everyone in the region have realized that pursuing aggressive policies are not paying off, and in fact they're undermining their own security. So now there is a new understanding in the region where regional countries think that diplomacy is a better course to pursue their interests. And I think that's also has something to do with the regional perception that the US is withdrawing from the region, and the threat that was perceived by regional countries from the Muslim Brotherhood. I think that's been declining. So because of all those regions, I think regional countries are also reconsidering their foreign policy course, and I would say what Erdogan is doing is part of that larger regional trend.
ما أولويات المفاوضات بين مصر وتركيا؟
From Erdogan's perspective, he put it plainly. He said that he expected Egypt to stand with Turkey in the Eastern Mediterranean. I think that's the number one expectation from Turkey's point of view. But I think if normalization can happen, the two countries can exchange ambassadors. I think that can happen. But if that's what Erdogan expects, if Erdogan expects a dramatic change in Egypt's foreign policy behavior, particularly with Cyprus, with Greece, and with others in the region, I don't think that's going to happen. So Erdogan, I think he might be disappointing. He might be disappointed because Egypt has been cultivating, and Greece also cultivating close ties with each other. And there is an energy partnership formed between Israel, Cyprus, and Greece. So I don't think Egypt or other countries like Israel will back down on that partnership. So in that regard, Erdogan's expectations are clear. He wants to align his policies with Egypt in the Eastern Med, but I don't think that's going to happen.
فيما يتعلق بالملف الليبي، هل يمكن أن تتوصل القاهرة وأنقرة إلى أرضية مشتركة للمسائل العالقة في هذا الملف؟
Well, it's difficult to say. There's a diplomatic process underway right now, but I think they have conflicting interests. So from Turkey's point of view, Turkey wants to have a presence in Libya because Erdogan wants to have a say in a future government, because I believe the main driver of the Libya policy Erdogan has been pursuing is Turkey's calculations in East Med. Turkey thinks that closer ties with Libya will serve its interest in the Eastern Mediterranean. So I think that's motivation number one. There are others, trade, economic related concerns there, but Turkey wants to have a military presence in Libya. And so far has supported groups that are aligned with Muslim Brotherhood in Libya. And from Egypt's point of view, those are all red flags. Egypt wants a secure Libya, and obviously it's opposed to any groups that are aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood. So from Egypt's point of view, Turkey's military presence in Libya is very problematic. So I see conflicting interests there that are not impossible, but not easy to reconcile.
بما أنك جئت على ذكر الإخوان، هل ستسلم تركيا عناصر الإخوان على أراضيها؟ وماذا سيكون مصيرهم؟
I think, look, Erdogan, the policy Erdogan pursued right after the Arab uprisings is dramatically different from what he's doing right now. Right after the Arab uprisings, Erdogan threw all his support behind Ikhwan-related groups. And I think that had something to do with what he was doing at home. At the time, from 2011 onwards, Erdogan embarked on a policy of Islamization at home. And the main goal there was to consolidate his power, to switch the country from a parliamentary to a presidential system. And at the time, he relied on the conservative segments of the country. So Islamization at home was part of his strategy to get what he wanted, which was a presidential system. And the uprisings came at the perfect time for him. So he extended that policy of Islamization at home beyond Turkey's borders. And that's why he supported groups that were linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. But as I mentioned earlier, Erdogan has abandoned that strategy because it made Turkey isolated in the region. It undermined Turkish interests in the region, also vis-a-vis the Western world. So Erdogan is pursuing a completely different strategy, both at home and as a result on the foreign policy front. At home, he allied himself with Turkish nationalists. And that partly sidelined his support for an Islamist agenda. So in the region also, we've seen the Muslim Brotherhood's performance in the region, right? It's even in Tunisia, where many people thought that political Islam could pursue a moderate path. Even there, it failed. So given that, and given Erdogan's pragmatic calculations to mend ties with regional countries, I don't think Erdogan is now feels strongly about supporting Muslim Brotherhood groups. So it's not where he used to be. And I think that's why today he will have less problems meeting Egyptian demands in that regard. And he has also already taken steps, right? He warned the Muslim Brotherhood network, mostly in Istanbul, to tone down their criticism of the Egyptian regime. And I know that some members linked to Muslim Brotherhood, some were detained, some were extradited. So I don't think he will find it difficult to meet some of the demands, Egyptian demands with regards to Muslim Brotherhood networks in Turkey.
سؤالي الأخير عن مقارنة يتم تداولها بخصوص مصافحة أردوغان والسيسي، وأن المصافحة المقبلة ستكون بين أردوغان والأسد. هل تتفقين مع هذه المقارنة؟
Sure, I agree with you 100%. And you know, even he recently started talking about normalizing ties with the Assad regime. But in fact, since 2016, everything Erdogan has been doing in Syria strengthened the Assad regime militarily. The Astana process, for instance, and all the mechanisms under Astana process helped the Assad regime strengthen its military presence and weakened the anti-Assad opposition, which was once backed by Turkey fiercely. So I wouldn't, a normalization or shaking hands with Assad would not surprise me at all. And again, going back to the domestic dynamics, I think that's almost a must for Erdogan to shake hands with Assad, because at home, you know, Turkey is hosting 4 million Syrian refugees. And that's one of the top concerns of Turkish voters. We've seen that in 2019 local elections, when Erdogan's party lost almost all major cities in Turkey. And the number two reason, one of the top reasons for that loss, was the nationalist backlash against Syrian refugees. So Erdogan, ahead of Turkish elections, he needs to do something to address the refugee question. So shaking hands with Assad could be part of that strategy, because then he would frame normalizing ties with Assad regime as an effort to send back millions of refugees. Now, whether that's realistic or not, that's a matter of debate. But he would still pitch that, the idea of normalizing ties with Assad, as part of his solution to the Syrian refugee problem. It would not surprise me at all.
أستاذة غونول، شكرا جزيلا لك للمشاركة معنا في حوارات السياق.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
مشاهدينا، شكرا على طيب المتابعة. إلى الملتقى.